What if the Nile River, is only half the story? The half the world can actually see. Because beneath the sand, hundreds of kilometers from its banks, there is another Nile, a hidden one, older than the pyramids, older than Egypt itself. A river with no waves, no current, no sound. A river that has never once touched sunlight. And in 1953, a group of oilmen drilling in the deep Libyan desert didn't find oil. They found this, an ocean, buried, silent, waiting. For thousands of years, nobody knew it was there. Then one man did know, and he tried to do something no ruler had ever attempted. He tried to move an ocean. Today, we're going to answer the question that still divides historians, geologists, and engineers to this day. Is the water beneath the Sahara actually connected to the Nile? And did Muammar Gaddafi uncover humanity's greatest hidden secret? Or did he just get very, very lucky? Stick with us until the end, because the final piece of this story, the part about what happens when this hidden river runs dry, is something almost nobody talks about. And once you hear it, you'll never look at a map of the Sahara the same way again. Let's go back to the beginning of the Nile itself. Before we go underground, we need to understand something the history books rarely explain. The Nile you see today is not the only Nile that ever existed. For over 5,000 years, the Nile has been called the gift of civilization. It built Egypt. It fed the pharaohs. It carried the stones that raised the pyramids. But here's what most people don't know. The Nile has not always followed the path it follows now. Geologists have found something remarkable buried under the desert sands, hundreds of kilometers west of the river's current course. Dry riverbeds, ancient channels, the fossilized skeleton of rivers that flowed and vanished. Scientists call these paleochannels ghost rivers, and some of them, researchers believe, once linked directly to the same deep water systems that lie beneath modern-day Libya, Chad, and Sudan. Around 10,000 years ago, the Sahara wasn't a desert at all. It was a green, living land. Lakes, wetlands, herds of elephants and giraffes. Rain fell almost every day. And all of that rainwater didn't just disappear when the climate changed. It went down. Drop by drop, year after year, for thousands of years, it sank into the sandstone beneath the desert floor, and it stayed there, sealed, preserved, untouched by time. This is where the mystery begins. Because this fossil water, the same water hiding under the Sahara today, may be a forgotten cousin of the Nile itself, a twin river that chose to disappear underground instead of flowing to the sea. But in 1953, something happened that nobody was expecting. An accident that would change the fate of an entire nation. If a hidden underground ocean sounds unbelievable to you, hit subscribe now. They weren't looking for water. They were looking for oil. What they found instead was almost impossible to believe. In the 1950s, geologists drilling in the remote Kufra oasis of southeastern Libya were searching for petroleum, the resource everyone assumed would define the region's future. Instead, their drills hit something else entirely. Water, clean, ancient, endless. At first, nobody understood the scale of what they'd stumbled onto. But as more wells were drilled across Libya, Egypt, Sudan, and Chad, a terrifying and beautiful picture began to emerge. This wasn't a small underground pocket. This was the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer System, the largest known reservoir of fresh water on Earth. A buried sea stretching across more than 2 million square kilometers. roughly the size of the entire country of Mexico, and holding an estimated 150,000 cubic kilometers of water. Let that number sit for a second. That is more water than every lake in North America combined. And here's the part that connects it back to where we started. This aquifer sits just a few hundred kilometers from the Nile Valley itself. Some hydrologists believe the two systems were once linked, that in the wetter millennia of the ancient past, this underground sea may have fed the Nile's ancient tributaries directly, before the desert sealed it away forever. So the question becomes almost poetic. Is this the Nile's forgotten twin? A river that went underground instead of to the sea and simply waited. But there was one enormous problem. This water wasn't renewable. No rain falls in the Sahara today heavy enough to refill it. Every drop pumped out is a drop that will never return. It took nature roughly 40,000 years to fill this reservoir. Humans could empty it in a fraction of that time. And in 1969, a young military officer came to power in Libya, a man who would look at this buried ocean and decide to move it.
If a hidden underground ocean sounds unbelievable to you, wait until you see what one man decided to do with it. Hit subscribe now, because what happens next is one of the most ambitious engineering stories in human history, and we're just getting started. He had two choices in front of him, and only one of them was legally allowed. By the time Muammar Gaddafi seized power in Libya in 1969, the country was sitting on two of the most valuable resources on the planet, oil, and now this hidden fossil sea. 90% of Libya was desert. Its coastal wells were turning salty from overuse. Its 6 million citizens were crammed onto a narrow strip of livable land. The obvious solution on paper was simple: take water from the Nile. But that door was closed before Gaddafi ever reached for it. For decades, Nile water had been governed by strict international agreements between Egypt and Sudan, treaties that left almost no legal room for a third country to divert the river for its own use. Building a canal from the Nile into Libya wasn't just an engineering problem. It was a political impossibility. It would have meant negotiating rights to a river two other nations had already claimed as their own. So Gaddafi turned his attention underground, to water that belonged to no one else. Water that didn't need a treaty. Water that was entirely, exclusively, Libya's. His plan was staggering in its ambition. Pump the ancient water from beneath the southern desert and carry it over 2,500 kilometers north to the coast, through a network of pipes wide enough to drive a bus through. He called it the Great Man-Made River, and he called it the eighth wonder of the world. The price tag was estimated at $25 billion. And remarkably, Libya paid for nearly all of it using its own oil revenue, refusing foreign loans, refusing to owe a single dollar to any Western bank. Sub-hook tension. But critics asked the question that still haunts this project today. If this water took 40,000 years to accumulate and cannot be replaced, what happens when it's gone? In 1991, something happened that even skeptics couldn't deny. After more than a decade of construction, thousands of workers, over 1,300 wells drilled up to 600 meters deep, and nearly 4,000 kilometers of concrete pipe buried beneath the desert, water finally reached the city of Benghazi. Water that had been sealed underground since before human civilization began was now pouring out of household taps. From space, the results are almost surreal. Perfect green circles scattered across a landscape of pure gold sand, each one an irrigated farm fed by a rotating sprinkler system, some more than a kilometer wide. Wheat, barley, vegetables, fruit. Land that had been dead for thousands of years was suddenly producing food for an entire nation. For a moment, it looked as if Gaddafi's impossible dream, the ghost river of the Sahara, brought back to life. had actually worked. But underneath the celebration was a warning nobody wanted to hear. This water is not renewable. Every liter pumped to the surface is a liter that will never be replaced. Not in our lifetime, not in 10 lifetimes. Some hydrologists estimate that at current extraction rates, parts of this ancient reservoir could be significantly depleted within the next several decades, which means the very achievement that turned Libya's desert green may also be quietly draining the last physical link to the Nile's ancient, forgotten twin, a river that took 40,000 years to fill, and that humanity may empty in less than 100. What if the Nile has been secretly feeding a hidden ocean beneath the Sahara for thousands of years, without anyone noticing? Hydrogeologists studying the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer have found evidence that water from the Nile Valley may be slowly seeping westward into this ancient underground reservoir, drop by drop, through cracks in the sandstone, invisible from the surface. But here's the unsettling part. Scientists say the exact scale of this seepage is still impossible to measure. No one knows how much or how fast. Is the Nile quietly rewriting the map beneath our feet? For now, nobody can say for certain. So, was the water beneath the Sahara truly connected to the Nile? A hidden sibling separated by thousands of years of shifting sand? Or was it simply a coincidence of geology, waiting in the dark for someone bold or reckless enough to find it? Maybe the real question isn't whether Gaddafi found the Nile's greatest secret. Maybe it's whether the next generation will still have any of it left. If this story pulled you in, subscribe for more hidden histories buried beneath the world we think we already know.